The world is changing, and so is real estate. It's changing in ways that give consumers more control with more affordable options. So, what are your options? Hi, this is Joe Kuchera with Real Estate Radio Live. I've been on the air educating and informing consumers for over 7 years now. I'm excited to announce that there is now a more efficient and cost-effective way to buy and sell real estate. Our team at Real Estate Radio Live is launching a new program designed to help buyers or sellers like you in real estate, lending, and title. That's right, we'll coordinate the entire transaction for you. So you benefit by working with the same team, saving time and saving money. We'll guarantee you'll not only be working with the most qualified, hand-picked experts in real estate, lending, and title, but you will also save a significant amount of money in all three services as well. Act now and benefit from changing the world of real estate. Call 408-838-9060. Go to reradiolive.com. That's reradiolive.com.
Welcome to Real Estate Radio Live, an informative and engaging podcast discussing everything you need to know about the world of real estate. Your host, Joe Kuchera, provides you with insight and guidance on how to buy, sell, finance, and invest in real estate. He also offers real estate tax management strategies, new construction advice, home improvement tips, and much, much more. And now, to guide you around the world of real estate, here's your host and Real Estate Radio Live team leader, Joe Kuchera.
Welcome in, Joe Kuchera with Real Estate Radio Live. Thank you so much for tuning in today and joining us. Before we get started on our topic today, just a few reminders. Be sure to download the podcast when you get a chance. You could do that by going to iTunes and just typing in Real Estate Radio Live. You could also go to reradiolive.com and get the download or for the podcast there. Anywhere really that you go online and search Real Estate Radio Live, you can find the podcast. The reason why that's really important, we want to thank those who are following us on Facebook. Appreciate that very much. That continues to grow every day. We love the interaction. We love the fact that we could bring this communication to people in so many different ways and vehicles. But be sure again to download the podcast at RE Radio Live or go to iTunes. During the week or any time, if you're listening to this podcast, watching the show, two different ways you could reach me, 408-838-9060. Again, that's 408-838-9060. Or you could also email joe@reradiolive.com. Be sure to stay tuned for much, much more exciting new developments, new news coming to Real Estate Radio Live here in the next couple of weeks. We have a lot of announcements to make, so be sure to stay tuned and stay connected with us as we go. The topic today is going to be, what do we need to know about the real estate and mortgage when it comes to the government shutdown? However, right before I started the show today, just as a disclaimer, about an hour or so before I started the show, it looks like the government came to terms with an agreement that's going to allow them to stay back in business for the next 3 weeks. But I'm still going to go through this exercise because it's important. We don't know what's going to happen just after these 3 weeks. Let's say after the 3 weeks go by, they can't come to terms and they have to again go back to and shut things down. So really important to know, if you're in the process of buying or selling a home, or you're in the process of doing a refinance, a mortgage, anything to do with the real estate side, it's important to have some basic education. So that's what I'm going to try to do for you today, to give you some steps, some information, some feedback to help you in the event that you're in the middle of this process on buying, selling, or refinancing, and our friends in the government decide to stomp their feet and sit in the corner and cry and not get anything done. The government shuts down. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. So first, the thing to really understand is that when it comes to the financing side, there's a couple different things that could kind of sidetrack and get you delayed if you're either refinancing or you're doing financing right now for a purchase. For the most part, I'll kind of go through a list of things. For the most part, there shouldn't be a lot of disruption on the lending side. As I kind of have a list here, I'm going to read through it. FHA, we're reporting that they're relatively unaffected, which means really no issues around FHA, even if the shutdown was to continue 3 weeks down the road if they can't come to terms, and that happens again. The VA are reporting to us that it's business as usual, really have not been affected. Fannie Mae, same thing, really have not been affected. Now, the USDA, which are, they're rare loans. Some people deal with that in terms of that. Those loans somewhat affected, but I would check local offices and check those. That's a rare loan. It's not that someone does those loans on a fairly regular basis. Probably the biggest thing that is going to affect people, and most of you don't know the terminology of this because you're only subjected to it when you get a refinance or you get a purchase financing. That is that anytime we do jumbo financing or financing in general, when we get someone's tax returns, we have to verify the validity of those tax returns. So it's called processing the 4506. Those are the forms, the IRS forms, to verify tax returns. And so that process could be slowed. That could be the piece of the puzzle here that slows the process. So the thing to keep in mind, I don't think the conforming loans will be affected too much, but if you're borrowing somewhere in the neighborhood of, I think it's 670 some thousand is now the new conforming loan limits. Anything over, say, 680,000 is jumbo now in the Bay Area and high cost areas. Then there could be a bit of a delay, even more so if you're doing jumbo financing, depending on the investor. So keep in mind, if you're refinancing right now or you're about ready to, and your loan amount's going to be over $680,000, or you're also doing a purchase financing and your loan's going to be over $680,000, you're in jumbo territory. The fact that you have a jumbo financing definitely could have an effect on the delay or potential delay in financing, getting your financing in place. So those, for the most part, on the lending side, should be minimal. It really should be minimal. Now, if there was a situation where the shutdown went on for months, several months, then I think that there would be a different impact, and we would report on that, of course, if that takes place. But it looks like right now they've come to terms again for a couple extra weeks. So let's talk a little bit about the potential effects on the real estate side. Not a whole lot to report, to be honest with you. As I read through these reports that are just coming out today, and there's a bunch of them, as I kind of breeze through them, I could tell you that the biggest impact is going to be on the lending side. There's really not a whole lot on the housing side in terms of buying and selling that the government has a big representation on or plays a part in that would potentially delay any kind of funding or issues on the real estate side. So kind of the message as we summarize this, as we roll into another topic here, if you're refinancing or purchasing and your loan amount's over $680,000, I would encourage you to contact your lender, whoever you're working with, and bring this up to them and ask good questions. Say, hey, I understand this could affect me. If so, how much longer? What types of things do I have to be aware of? That's what I would do if you're in the middle of it, or if you're about ready to start. If you're unsure and you're about ready to, or you're thinking, well, gee, maybe I should delay, you could always give me a call. Again, check in with me, 408-838-9060, or you could always email joe@reradiolive.com. I always get questions, and I'm happy to help. I'm always happy to help people with some of these questions when it pertains to anything to do with real estate in this particular matter. All right, and then lastly, if you're purchasing or selling, there should be no effect that we know of right now. If we get something that we find that we think that's going to be an effect or cause a negative effect on your real estate transaction, not mortgage, but the real estate side, there really shouldn't be. There should be none. So if something changes, we'll definitely report on that. And stay tuned to our podcast on a daily, weekly basis, just in case some of that changes. We'll bring that information to you. So if you're working with your real estate agent, right now, again, on preparing to list your house for sale or potentially buying a house, no effects at all. This shutdown will have no effects at all right now. If there was to continue again down the road, that could be a different story. So the last thing I'll say here is just to be sure, always contact the people that are representing you on the real estate and the lending side and ask them questions, have them bring you up to date if there's going to be any changes that will be taking place. So next thing we're going to do is talk a little bit about ongoing. I'm going to kind of finish up in this segment, and then I'll finish up in the second part of the show, and that is kind of piecing together the future of real estate and lending. You'll hear a lot about this on the show, and I talk a lot about this, and the reason why is because you've heard me say this a lot of times, you'll continue to hear this. We have a very educated and informed consumer these days, and because of that, we have to stay on top of this stuff, and I'm going to continue to report on it, and I'll do so. And so the second part of this show, I'm going to talk a little bit about kind of piecing together the future of the real estate and lending, what it may look like. There's things that change on a fairly regular basis, and as a consumer, you really should be aware of these types of things. One, just know what other options you have, right? These are the main things as a consumer why you want to know what's going on in the real estate and lending when it comes to how technology might be changing the dynamics of it. One, what kind of options do you have available to you now that weren't available before? And a lot of people don't report on them. You have to search. Sometimes you have to search far and wide to find new developments in our industry because it's not reported on a lot and it doesn't get the front page like a lot of this stuff does. So I'll continue reporting on any of those updates for you on a regular basis. Those will include, again, the transactions, how people buy and sell homes, how people get their mortgage, how they finance their homes. There's a bunch of different models, and which ones will work, which ones don't. That won't work, we'll find out soon enough as we develop and as some of these deploy. All right, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a quick break, and I'm going to come back, stick with us again on Facebook. This break is really quick, and I'm going to come back, and we're going to talk a little bit about piecing together the future, what it might look like in 2018 and then going forward, just to give the consumers a little bit of an idea to keep an eye on things as you get ready to sell your home, buy a home, get financing. Where should you go to look? Where should you go to find more information so that you feel like you have the most current opportunities and options to make those transactions? All right, this is Joe Kuchera with Real Estate Radio Live. Thanks again for tuning in. Stick with us. We're going to take just a quick break, and we're going to come right back and finish up the show in just a minute or so.
For more information on today's program, visit reradiolive.com. That's reradiolive.com.
The world is changing, and so is real estate. It's changing in ways that give consumers more control with more affordable options. So what are your options? Hi, this is Joe Kuchera with Real Estate Radio Live. I've been on the air educating and informing consumers for over 7 years now. I'm excited to announce that there is now a more efficient and cost-effective way to buy and sell real estate. Our team at Real Estate Radio Live is launching a new program designed to help buyers or sellers like you in real estate, lending, and title. That's right, we'll coordinate the entire transaction for you. So you benefit by working with the same team, saving time and saving money. We'll guarantee you'll not only be working with the most qualified, hand-picked experts in real estate, lending, and title, but you will also save a significant amount of money in all three services as well. Act now and benefit from changing the world of real estate. Call 408-838-9060. Go to reradiolive.com. That's reradiolive.com.
Welcome back to Real Estate Radio Live. For more information on today's topic or guests, just visit reradiolive.com. That's reradiolive.com. Again, your host for today's edition of Real Estate Radio Live, Joe Kuchera.
Welcome back in. Joe Kuchera with Real Estate Radio Live. Thanks again for tuning in. For those on Facebook, and stay tuned. Continue to do so. Pass the information around and share it with your friends, family, coworkers. We want to continue to grow the audience for obvious reasons. We think that a more wise consumer makes us all better consumers in many different ways. And our focus has really been the same and will continue to be the same. And I'll repeat it every once in a while just for the people that may just be tuning in for the first time, or maybe honestly the reason I repeat some of this stuff on and on every couple of weeks is just to remind those that are just tuning in, or maybe they're just downloading the podcast for the first time, that this show now is, we've been on the radio and podcasting for almost 8 years. And we want to continue doing the same thing, and that is providing you, the consumer, with education and information so that you make wise decisions in and around your real estate. Purely simple. And that could be buying a home, selling a home, financing. It could be about investment real estate. It could be about architecture, building, construction, development, landscaping. We could go on and on. You know what I mean? So we'll continue to do that. We'll also continue to have great guests on. Normally, a couple times a week, we'll have some great guests. Sometimes we're loaded each week with a lot of guests. Other times, it just depends on what their schedules are and how our rotation works with those guests. So for more information, to download the podcast, the best place really to download the podcast also is to go to our website. That way, if you want to reach out to us or find out a little bit more about what we do, how we help you, go to reradiolive.com. That's reradiolive.com. You could find all the information you need on all aspects of real estate. You could download the podcast, and you could contact us if you'd like as well. And if you're listening to this via the podcast, the two ways to reach me are 408-838-9060, or you could also email Joe at reradiolive.com. All right, the last part of the show, I'm going to talk a little bit about piecing together the future of the real estate and lending markets. You'll hear a lot of this over the next couple months and really on and off for 2018. And the reason why is that we are in a changing world right now in many different aspects, and it's not just most of you completely understand the percentage of people that start everything they do online now. It has completely changed. And the younger generations, the millennials and even younger, they were really born up and raised with these mobile phones and the access to the information online, so they know nothing different. And so because of that, the consumer's needs change and the expediency of that changes. And I've said this before, that as we continue to have a more educated and informed consumer, what happens is it behooves us, our industries, to then be on top of our game and do the best we can and deliver additional products, services, and technology to our consumers to meet their demands. It's impossible to meet people's demands 100% of the time. I think most of us agree and understand that. But as an industry, we have to do a better job, our industry, mortgage lending, real estate, title, and escrow, with delivering these services. So let's take a little glimpse into some of the different models I'm going to just share with you that are out there in the real estate market. What's going on today, maybe some new entries into the market, and then a view into what might be coming, just to give you kind of an overview of what's happening. So most of us are very familiar with the traditional real estate transaction. What I mean by that is you find a real estate agent of choice. I'll back up a second. You go online, most of you do your research when you decide you're going to sell a house or buy a home. Then you contact a real estate agent. Typically, you're the interview a couple, or you have someone that you worked with before that you trust, and you hire them. You sign a contract, and you go to work with them to either list your house or to have them help you buy a home. That's kind of the traditional way. And then along the way, of course, if you need a loan, if you're buying a home, if you're selling a home and then going to buy a place, you're going to need a loan typically. So then part of this process is that you contact your lender, someone you trust that's going to get you pre-approved for that mortgage you need on the purchase, get you pre-approved, and you make that arrangement, and you have that connection between your lender and the real estate and the consumer, and you work together to close that transaction. That's the traditional transaction that most of us are used to. Now let's talk a little bit about what's coming to the marketplace and what's being deployed out there that we're just hearing about, and they're actually getting some traction. So there's a couple different models that are a little bit different than the traditional model. One is completely buy the home outright for the consumer and turn around and sell it, completely taking the real estate agent and title and escrow and everything out of the equation. That is one concept out there. There's a couple different companies. They're called Open Door, iOffer, iBuyer, a couple different things. That is one concept out there. Their theory and their concept is take the real estate, take really everybody, the human element, not the human element, so to speak, but take the traditional elements out of the real estate transaction. That way you don't need a real estate agent, you don't need a lender, because all you're doing, what these companies are doing, is they're going in and they're negotiating with the seller of the home. They're negotiating to buy that house, and then they turn around and sell it to somebody. So they act as that party, right? Here's a couple of things about that model that are interesting that I will say the pros and cons of it. The pros are typically, the only pros that I see are this, is that someone could act quickly to buy a home or sell a home. In this case, sell your home without worrying about having someone's financing or contingencies, holding an open house, making sure your house is clean, doing your landscaping, preparing your home. That's the only benefit I see of this model. Otherwise, to me, this model does not work. When I say it doesn't work, in my opinion, and I research this stuff every day, this model is not going to work long term in a big way in expensive markets, because no one in their right mind is going to sell their home without putting it on the market because they don't know what the market's going to bear. That could happen in Arizona, Florida, Ohio. If you have an average sales price of $200,000, I could see this model working, and that's where it's working, quite frankly, in models in places like that. Plus a lot of other things that these companies won't tell you that they're engaging in. It's misleading marketing. You know what most of their transactions consist of? Most of these transactions consist of fix and flips. That's right. So they won't tell you this, but most of this concept where we'll buy your house right outright, what they're doing is either fix and flips. These are people that don't really, they're selling their home. They don't want to deal with it. They're selling it, and then the companies turn around and then, they're buying it from someone. They're turning around and selling it, right? That's not going to work in a market like here in the Silicon Valley. If the average home is 1.1 million and above, there's no one that's going to knock on your door or get you on the phone or email you and say, hey, listen, I noticed your house is worth 1.1 million. I'll tell you what, I'll give you 1,050,000 for it and close in 2 days. Are you kidding me? People aren't going to do that. Why would they do that? They're not going to, because they're going to want more. They're going to want the most for their house, and they could demand it in a market like this. So that model is not, in my opinion, not going to work in markets like this. Here's the last thing I'll talk about that model. They don't tell you, but there's some expensive fees associated with it, but no one wants to talk about that. It's funny how that's tucked underneath. So the average fees with these concepts, this model, is 8 to 10%. So when these people say it's quicker, faster, cheaper, I would totally disagree. They're going to sell that concept, but it's not. So that model of completely buying someone's house outright, I just think, yes, will it work in some markets? Absolutely. Yes, will it work with fix and flips? Yeah, because people are buying homes cheap, turning around, fixing them up, selling them, and that's what these companies are doing. Fine. There's a model for that, but it's not going to work mainstream in high expense or high cost areas like this. Just won't. So that's that model. The next model is really what I call a menu-based service, where there's companies out there online saying, here's what we're going to do. We're going to discount some fees, but we're going to ask you to do a little extra work. You, the consumer. There's some models out there doing this. I'll tell you what, we will help you with your open house. We'll do some flyers for you. We'll consult with you. And because of that, we'll just charge you these small fees, or we'll discount them. So instead of paying, 6% or 5% to sell your house, we'll sell it for less. But here's the deal. We're going to ask you to do some work. We're going to ask you to get involved. We're going to ask you to do some open houses instead of. So again, that is a model, and maybe it works for some people, but the research that we show, That's not a big benefit because most people will tell you when they're surveyed, they don't want to sell their house on their own. They don't want to buy a house on their own. They want the help of a qualified professional. So these menu-based services, in my opinion, aren't going to work all that much. So then there's the other model, and then one of them's not the last one, but one of the ones out there is that, I'll tell you what, come to our website, type in the area you're looking to sell a home, a buy a home, your zip code, and then up comes all the information's done behind the scenes, and their vetting process of here are the top 5 real estate agents that sold the most homes in that area with the highest customer satisfaction rating in the last couple of years or something. So that's those models. And so what happens is when people type in, okay, I'm selling a home in 95008, here's the top 5 agents as rated by them. And then you, as a consumer, do some due diligence. You maybe interview those agents. You do a little research on them online. You go to LinkedIn. You find out what their profile is. You find out a little bit about their background. This is another model that's out there. And so the idea is that you, the consumer, want the very best real estate agent for that particular area. In concept, in theory, this is pretty good. Here's what I'll say, though, before we duck out here. We're just about ready to close out. The reason I don't like that model all that much, 100%, is that just because these are the top 5 agents in that area that sold the most properties, number one is not going to mean they're the best at customer satisfaction and they do the best job. And number two, it doesn't mean that you're necessarily going to get along with them. And some of these people have teams, and sometimes the ratings are a little bit different, and you're not sure who you're working for. So it might represent a person's name, and then you might get pushed off on someone else. So there's some things to be careful about that. All right, we're running out of time today. So real quickly, for more information, you could always go to reradiolive.com. If you want to reach me during the week, 408-838-9060. This is Joe Kuchera with Real Estate Radio Live. Thanks again for tuning in today. Until next time, take care.
For more information on today's program, visit reradiolive.com. That's reradiolive.com.